Where? Respect it. There will come a moment in your life, and I promise you, it's coming if it hasn't already, when everything inside you says stop, but everything your future needs from you says keep going. What you do in that moment will define everything. Let me set the scene for you. It's 2 a.m. The house is quiet. Everybody else is sleeping, your family, your friends, the people who told you this dream of yours was too big, too risky, too much. They're all asleep, comfortable, unbothered, and there you are. Sitting at a table or a desk or maybe on the floor of a room that doesn't even feel like yours yet, tired. Not just physically tired. I'm talking about that tired that goes all the way down to your soul. That tired where your eyes hurt and your back aches and your mind keeps whispering, just quit, just rest, nobody's even watching. And here's the question I want to sit with you today. Here's the question that this entire conversation is built around. What do you do when you're tired, but your dream isn't finished yet? Because I want to tell you something. I want to tell you something that took me years, and I mean years of sleeping in my car, of being rejected, of failing on stage, of watching other people get the opportunities I felt like I deserved years to truly understand. And that thing is this: the secret to getting things done when you're tired is not discipline. It's not willpower. It's not some motivational quote you put on your phone screen. The secret is something far deeper, far more personal, and far more powerful than any of those things. But before I tell you what that secret is, I need to take you somewhere. I need to take you back to a place most people don't talk about. Because success, real success, is never born in the spotlight. It's born in the dark. It's born in the moments nobody claps for. It's born at 2 a.m. when the house is quiet and everything inside you wants to stop. My name is not important right now. What's important is that you hear this. What's important is that somewhere between the beginning of this video and the end of it, something shifts inside of you. Because I've seen too many gifted people, too many brilliant, talented, capable human beings let exhaustion win. Not because they weren't strong enough, not because they didn't have what it takes, but because nobody ever sat them down and told them the truth about what it really means to keep going when your tank is empty. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about it, all of it. The exhaustion, the doubt, the invisible war that every single person who has ever tried to build something meaningful has had to fight. And I'm going to tell you a story. Several stories, actually, because that's how truth gets inside a person, not through lectures, not through lists, but through stories that sound like your life. Let me start here. There's a man I want you to think about, not a famous man, not a man with a big platform or a highlight reel or a Wikipedia page, just a man. An ordinary man living an ordinary life, working an ordinary job that was slowly draining the extraordinary right out of him. Every morning he got up before the sun. Every night he came home after the sun had already given up on the day. He ate dinner in silence, helped his kids with homework he was too tired to understand himself, kissed his wife on the cheek, and collapsed into bed only to wake up a few hours later and do it all over again. And this man had a dream. He'd had it since he was a child. A burning, aching, specific dream that lived in his chest like a fire that never quite went out no matter how many times the rain tried to put it out. He wanted to build something. Didn't matter what the specifics of the dream aren't what matters here. What matters is that it was his. It was the one thing in his life that felt like it belonged completely and totally to him. And every single day he told himself, tomorrow I'll start. Tomorrow when I'm not so tired. Tomorrow when things slow down a little. Tomorrow when the kids are older, when the bills are smaller, when life gives me a little more room. And you know what tomorrow has a habit of doing? It has a habit of becoming today, and then yesterday, and then a memory. 20 years passed, 20 years of tomorrows. And one evening, this man is sitting on his back porch, older now, grayer now, quieter now, and his youngest son sits down beside him. And his son says, "Dad, what did you always want to be?" Just a simple, innocent question from a child who doesn't know he's asking about a wound. And the man looks out at the sky for a long, long moment. And he says, "I don't remember anymore." He didn't say, "I ran out of time." He didn't say, "Life got in the way." He said, "I don't remember." Because that's what happens when you keep choosing rest over purpose, convenience over calling, comfort over commitment. You don't just lose. Where? The dream. You lose the memory of the dream. You lose the version of yourself who believed it was possible in the first place. Now, I need you to stay with me here, because I am not telling you that story to make you feel bad. I am not telling you that story to guilt you or shame you or make you feel like you've already failed. I'm telling you that story because I believe with everything in me that you are not that man. I believe that the fact that you're here right now, watching this, listening to this, means that your fire is still burning. It might be low. It might be flickering. The wind might be working against it tonight, but it's still there. And a fire that still burns can always be built back up. But here's what I need you to understand about exhaustion, because we have to name this thing correctly before we can fight it. There are two kinds of tired. There is a tired that is a warning sign. That is a tired that your body uses to protect you, the tired that comes after days without sleep, after pushing yourself past the point of health, after neglecting the basic maintenance that your mind and body need to function. That kind of tired is real. That kind of tired deserves rest. And I am not here today to tell you to ignore your health. I am not here to tell you to destroy yourself in the name of ambition. Because a broken instrument can't play music and a depleted person can't build a dream. Rest is not the enemy of success. Unearned rest is. But then there is the other kind of tired. The kind that is not actually physical at all. The kind that feels like exhaustion, but is really just fear wearing a disguise. The kind that shows up not when you've pushed too hard, but when you're right on the edge of a breakthrough. The kind that says, I can't do this anymore, right at the moment when you're closer than you've ever been. That kind of tired is a liar. And learning to tell the difference between those two kinds is one of the most important skills you will ever develop as a person who is trying to build something in this world. I learned this the hard way. I was in my 20s and I was broke, not inconveniently broke, not I can't afford the nice restaurant broke. I was sleeping in my car broke. I was eating out of vending machines when I had enough quarters broke. I was watching other people walk into buildings with heat and running water and feeling like I was on the outside of a window looking in at a world that didn't have room for me. And I was tired. Lord, I was tired in every possible way a person can be tired. Tired in my body, tired in my mind, tired in my spirit. Tired of trying and failing and trying and failing and trying and still not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. And one night, and I remember this night like it happened this morning, I sat in that car and I just broke down. I mean, I cried like I hadn't cried since I was a little boy. Not quiet crying, not dignified crying. The ugly, ugly kind of crying that comes from somewhere so deep inside of you that it almost scares you, because I couldn't see the point anymore. I genuinely could not see what I was doing any of this for. The dream felt so far away, it felt like somebody else's dream. The person who had believed so strongly that something great was waiting for him on the other side of the struggle, I couldn't find that person anymore. I thought maybe he was gone. But here's what happened next. And this is the part I need you to hear. Nothing happened next. No angel showed up. No door magically opened. No phone call came in the middle of the night with a life-changing opportunity. Nothing happened except that eventually I cried myself dry. And when there were no more tears left, something very quiet and very simple settled over me. And in that quiet, I heard something, not from outside, from inside. A voice, my own voice actually, that said, "You're still here." That's all it said. Just 3 words. You're still here. And do you know what's remarkable about those 3 words? They're true. As long as you're breathing, they're true. You're still here, which means the story isn't over, which means the chapter isn't finished, which means everything you believe is impossible about your future has not been confirmed yet. It's just a feeling. And feelings, as powerful as they are not facts. I want to talk to you about purpose, because I think purpose is the most misunderstood word in the English language when it comes to motivation. People talk about purpose like it's a destination, like it's something you arrive at one day and then you're set. Like purpose is a door you walk through and on the other side, everything makes sense and nothing is hard anymore. But that's not what purpose is. Purpose is not a destination. Purpose is a fuel. It's the thing that burns inside of you and makes the hard things possible. It's the reason the exhaustion doesn't win. Not because purpose makes you immune to tiredness, B. Where? UT, because purpose makes the tiredness worth it. Think about a mother. Think about a mother who is up at 3 a.m. with a sick child. She's not running on sleep. She's not running on comfort. She might not have had a full night's rest in weeks, but she's up. She's up and she's present, and she's doing what needs to be done. And if you asked her, aren't you tired? She would look at you with those tired, wide open eyes and she would say, yes, but this is my child. That's purpose. That's what purpose does. It doesn't eliminate the weight. It makes you strong enough to carry it. And here's what I want to ask you today. With everything I have, I want to ask you this. What is your child? What is the thing in your life that is so important, so deeply yours, so fundamentally connected to who you are and who you are meant to become, that even at 2 a.m, even on empty, even when every reasonable, rational, logical part of your brain is saying, stop, it's still worth doing? Because if you can answer that question, if you can look at yourself honestly and say, this is what I'm here for, this is the thing that was placed inside of me before I even had words for it, then you have the foundation. You have the bedrock. Everything else we're going to talk about today builds on that foundation. But if you can't answer that question yet, that's okay too. Because part of what we're doing here today is helping you find it or remember it. Because for most people, purpose isn't something new. It's something they've always known and slowly talked themselves out of believing in. Let me tell you about another person, a woman this time, a woman who grew up being told in 100 different ways that she was too much, too loud, too ambitious, too emotional, too sensitive, too this, too that. She heard it from teachers. She heard it from family members who meant well, but whose well-meaning words cut like knives. She heard it from partners who felt threatened by the size of what she was capable of. And over time, all of those voices became one voice, and that voice lived inside her head. And every time she tried to do something that mattered, that voice would show up and say, who do you think you are? But she had a gift. She knew she had a gift. Even through all of that, even underneath all of those layers of doubt and second guessing and small thinking that other people had pressed onto her like a weight she never asked to carry, she knew. There was something inside of her that was extraordinary, something that the world needed. And the exhaustion she felt wasn't from working too hard. It was from the daily, grinding, invisible work of fighting that voice, of getting up every morning and choosing, in the face of everything that had told her otherwise, to believe in herself anyway. And one day, after years of that fight, she made a decision that changed her life. She didn't make it when she felt ready. She didn't make it when the timing was perfect. She didn't make it after a great night of sleep or a particularly encouraging conversation. She made it on one of the hardest days of her life, when she was more tired than she could ever remember being. She decided that she was going to stop waiting to feel ready and start doing the thing anyway, because she understood something that most people never understand. Readiness is not a feeling. Readiness is a decision. You don't feel ready. You decide to be ready. You don't feel confident. You decide to act confident. You don't feel motivated. You decide to move anyway and let the motivation catch up with you. Because here's the truth that nobody tells you when you're sitting at the starting line, looking at the race ahead of you and feeling completely unprepared. The starting line is never comfortable. The first step is never easy. The beginning is always awkward and messy and imperfect. But it is the beginning. And a messy beginning is infinitely more powerful than a perfect plan that never becomes action. Now, I want to get practical with you for a moment, because this conversation can't just live in the abstract. It has to touch down on the ground where your real life is actually happening. You are tired. I hear you. I see you. I know what it feels like to be running on fumes and still have miles to go before you sleep. And I want to give you something real, something you can carry with you when this video ends and real life starts again. The first thing I want to give you is this. Stop measuring your progress by how you feel and start measuring it by what you do. Feelings are temporary. Actions are permanent. When you feel terrible but you sit down and do the work anyway, that action exists. It happened. Nobody can take it away from you. And every time you do that, every time you act in spite of how you feel, you are building something inside yourself that is more valuable than any skill or credential or connection you could ever acquire. You're building. Where? The habit of showing up. And the habit of showing up is the foundation of every great life ever lived. The second thing, stop waiting for the perfect moment to start, because I promise you the perfect moment is already here and you're inside of it. Not because circumstances are ideal, they're probably not. Not because you have everything you need, you probably don't. But because you're alive and you're here and the desire is still burning in you, and those three things together are enough. They have always been enough. They were enough for every person who ever built anything that mattered, and they are enough for you. The third thing, and this one might be the most important thing I say to you today, learn the difference between resting and quitting, because these are not the same thing, and the confusion between them has cost more people more dreams than almost anything else I can think of. Resting is strategic. Resting is a choice you make consciously to restore yourself so that you can go back and fight another day. Resting is what great athletes do between training sessions. It is not weakness, it is wisdom. Quitting is something else entirely. Quitting is the moment you decide that the dream is not worth the discomfort of continuing. And only you can make that distinction. But you have to be honest with yourself when you make it. You have to be willing to look yourself in the eyes and ask, am I resting because I need to, or am I stopping because I'm afraid? And here's the thing about fear. Fear doesn't go away. I have been in this business for a long time. I have stood in front of crowds of tens of thousands of people. I have done things that the 20-year-old version of me sleeping in that car could never have imagined. And I still feel fear. I still have moments of doubt. I still hear that voice that says, what if this is the time it doesn't work? The difference is not that the fear disappeared. The difference is that I stopped letting the fear have the last word, because fear talks. Fear is very, very loud, but courage doesn't have to be louder than fear. Courage just has to outlast it. Courage just has to take one more step after fear says stop. Just one more, and then one more after that. And that is how mountains get climbed. Not in one heroic leap, one step at a time, in the middle of fear, in the middle of exhaustion, in the middle of every voice that says you can't. You can. I believe that with everything in me, and I need you to believe it too. Not in some abstract, distant, maybe someday kind of way. Right now. Today, in this moment, whatever you're carrying, whatever you're building, whatever you've told yourself is too hard or too late or too far gone, I need you to look at it one more time and choose to believe that it is still possible. Because it is. 1:01 p.m., let me pick up right where we left off because we're just getting started. I want to talk to you about something that doesn't get discussed enough in conversations about success and motivation and getting things done. Something that lives right at the center of why so many gifted, talented, capable people stay stuck even when they know exactly what they're supposed to be doing. Something that is so quietly devastating that most people don't even recognize it as the enemy until it's already taken years from them. I want to talk to you about the war that happens inside, not the external battles, not the bills, not the circumstances, not the people who doubted you or the systems that weren't built for you or the timing that never seemed to work in your favor. Those are real. I'm not dismissing any of that. But the battle I'm talking about is the one that happens in the 6 inches between your ears. The one that starts before you even get out of bed in the morning. The one that tells you before the day has even had a chance to prove you wrong that today is going to be too hard, that you're too tired, that it's not worth it, that other people have advantages you don't have, and so what's the point of trying? That battle, that's the one that determines everything. And I want to tell you about a man who understood this better than almost anyone I've ever come across in my life. He wasn't a celebrity. He wasn't a billionaire. He was a factory worker in a small town who had been doing the same job for 17 years. The same shift, the same hours, the same commute, the same lunch, the same everything. And from the outside, his life looked like a life that had plateaued, like a life that had found its ceiling and made peace with it. But what people didn't know, what most people never knew, was that every single morning before that factory shift, this man got up an hour earlier than he needed to. Every single morning before the sun came up, before his family was awake, before the demands of the day came crashing in on him, he sat at a small table in his kitchen with a notebook and a pen, and he worked on his dream. Where? He was writing a book. Not because he thought it was going to make him rich. Not because he had a publisher interested or an agent waiting or any kind of external validation pushing him forward. He was writing it because something inside of him knew that this story needed to exist, that it was his to tell and nobody else's. And he worked on it every single morning, 5 days a week for 4 years. 4 years of 5 o'clock mornings. 4 years of tired eyes and cold coffee and pages that sometimes felt brilliant and sometimes felt like garbage. 4 years of his alarm going off in the dark and his body saying not today and his purpose saying yes, today, especially today. And at the end of those 4 years, he had a book, a real finished, complete book. Something that had not existed in the world before and now did because of him, because of his choice, because of 4 years of showing up before anybody was watching and doing the work when every reasonable part of him had good reasons not to. Did it become a bestseller? That's not the point. That was never the point. The point is that he finished it. The point is that he proved to himself in the most concrete, undeniable way possible that he was a person who could start something hard and carry it all the way to the end. And that knowledge, that self-knowledge changed him, changed the way he walked into a room, changed the way he talked to his children, changed the way he looked at himself in the mirror in the morning, because he knew something about himself now that he hadn't known before. He knew he had what it takes. And I want to stop here for a moment and ask you something personal. When was the last time you proved something to yourself? Not to your boss, not to your parents, not to the people who doubted you, not to social media, to yourself. When was the last time you set out to do something hard and you did it all the way through? Because I'm telling you right now, that experience, that specific experience of doing a hard thing completely is one of the most powerful fuels available to a human being. And if it's been a while since you felt it, if it's been a while since you've given yourself the chance to feel it, that might be a significant part of why tiredness is winning more battles than it should. Because here's what I've come to understand after everything I've been through, after all the years of building and failing and rebuilding and rising, tiredness is not just physical. Tiredness is also spiritual. And one of the things that feeds spiritual exhaustion, one of the things that makes you feel depleted, even when you've slept enough and eaten enough and done all the right external things, is the accumulated weight of promises you've made to yourself that you didn't keep. Think about that for a second. Think about how many times you said to yourself, I'm going to start Monday. And Monday came and went. I'm going to make that call tomorrow. Tomorrow turned into next week. I'm going to finish that project, launch that idea, have that conversation, take that step. And you didn't. And you told yourself it was fine, it was just postponed, you get to it. But deep down, somewhere beneath the rationalizations, something was keeping score. Something inside of you was watching. And every unkept promise to yourself is a small withdrawal from the account of your self-belief. And when that account gets low enough, you don't just feel tired, you feel defeated, not by the world, by yourself. And that is a uniquely painful kind of exhaustion because you can't blame circumstances for it. You can't point to bad luck or bad timing. It's just you looking at you, knowing. But here's the good news. And I mean this from the deepest place I know how to speak from. The same account that got depleted by broken promises can be refilled by kept ones. And you don't need to start with something huge. You don't need to climb the whole mountain today. You just need to climb one rock. You just need to make yourself one small promise today and keep it. And then tomorrow, make another one and keep that. And slowly, one kept promise at a time, you begin to rebuild the thing that exhaustion stole from you. You begin to rebuild your trust in yourself. And once that trust starts coming back, once you start to believe again that when you say you're going to do something, you actually do it, the tiredness starts to lose its power over you. Because you know something now. You know you're stronger than it is. You've proven it recently in your own life. Now I want to talk about environment, because this is something people drastically underestimate when they're trying to understand why they can't seem to get things done even when they genuinely want to. Your environment is not neutral. The people you spend the most time with, the conversations you participate in, the content you consume, the physical space you inhabit, none of it is where? Neutral. All of it is either adding to you or subtracting from you. All of it is either feeding your fire or watering it down. And when you're already tired, when you're already running low, environment matters more than ever because you don't have the surplus energy to fight against it. Let me paint you a picture. Two people, same amount of talent, same size of dream, same level of exhaustion. One of them goes home every evening to a household where their dream is spoken about like a real thing, where the people around them say, how did it go today? And I believe in you and keep going. The other goes home every evening to silence, or worse, to skepticism. To people who say, when are you going to get a real job? And that's a nice idea, but be realistic. And I just don't want you to get hurt. Two people, same talent, same dream. But I guarantee you, I absolutely guarantee you that one of them has an easier time getting up in the morning than the other. And I guarantee you that over time, if nothing changes, environment will win. Not because the second person doesn't have what it takes, but because human beings are not islands. We are deeply, profoundly affected by what surrounds us. So what do you do if you're the second person? What do you do when your environment is working against you and you don't have the option of simply walking away from it? Because I know that's the real question. It's easy to say change your environment, but the reality is that most people can't just pick up and leave. Most people have obligations, responsibilities, relationships that they can't simply walk away from for the sake of personal development. So what do? You build a microenvironment. Inside the environment you can't fully control, you carve out a small but sacred space that belongs to your dream. Maybe it's an hour in the morning before anyone else is awake. Maybe it's 30 minutes on your lunch break with your headphones in and your notebook out. Maybe it's the back seat of your car on the way home from work. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be comfortable. It just has to be consistent. And within that space, you protect your dream from every voice that would diminish it. You feed it. You work on it. You think about it. You make it real in that space even when the rest of the world is treating it like fiction. And here's something else I want to say about the people around you, because this is delicate, but it's important. Not everyone who loves you will understand your dream, and that's okay. Love and understanding are two different things. Your mother can love you completely and still not fully grasp why you need to do what you need to do. Your spouse can be your greatest supporter in 100 ways and still sometimes say things that make you feel unseen in this one specific area. The people in your life are human. They have their own fears, their own limitations, their own version of what a good life is supposed to look like. And sometimes, without meaning to, they project those fears and limitations onto you. The key is learning not to take it personally and not to take it to heart. Because when someone tells you that your dream is unrealistic, they are not reading the future. They're reading their past. They're looking at what didn't work for them, or what they were told wouldn't work, or what they were afraid to try, and they're handing that to you as advice. But their past is not your future, and their ceiling is not your ceiling. You get to write your own story. You get to decide what's possible for your life, and no amount of well-meaning discouragement changes that unless you let it. I want to share something with you now that I have never fully been able to explain, but I've felt it my entire life. And I think if you've ever been in the middle of building something that truly matters, you've felt it too. There is a moment in every significant endeavor where it gets harder before it gets better. Not metaphorically, literally. There is a specific point in the process where the initial excitement has worn off, the novelty is gone, the early wins have faded, and what you're left with is just the work. The relentless, unglamorous, uncelebrated, nobody's watching work. And this point, this specific moment, is where most people stop. Not because they failed, not because the dream turned out to be impossible, but because they didn't know this moment was coming. And when it arrived, they interpreted it as a sign that they were on the wrong path instead of a sign that they were getting close to something real. Stephen Pressfield, a writer who I have tremendous respect for, calls this the resistance. That invisible force that gets stronger the closer you get to doing something that matters. And if you think about it, it makes a certain kind of sense. The things that are most worth doing are the things that require the most of you. They require your vulnerability, your commitment, where it meant your willingness to be wrong and imperfect and exposed. And the part of you that wants to stay safe, that wants to stay comfortable, that wants to avoid the possibility of failure and judgment and disappointment, that part fights back. Hard. It tells you you're tired when you're not. It tells you you're unprepared when you're not. It tells you the world doesn't need this when it absolutely does. And the only way through the resistance is through it, not around it, not over it, not by waiting for it to go away on its own. You go through it. You feel it fully, the fear, the doubt, the exhaustion, and you move anyway. Because on the other side of the resistance is the version of yourself that you've been trying to get to, the version that finished the thing, the version that didn't quit, the version that your children will look at one day and say, that's who I want to be. Now, I want to get into something that I think is at the very core of the question we started with today. The secret to getting things done when you're tired. Because I've been building toward this, and I think you're ready to hear it now.